Welcome everybody to the CCS CAMM meeting for August 2023. My name is Tammy Skrzynski and I'm from Grays Lake Library. Thanks for joining us all. And I guess the first thing we do is we approve the minutes from the last meeting. Do I need a motion for that, Rachel?
Yes.
Can I get a motion for the approval? Looks like Brad's motioned and Karen's second. So the meetings are approved. Second thing is, does anybody have anything they would like to add to the agenda? No? Okay, well then we can start with our new business and I'll hand it back to Rachel for the new language field and LEAP.
All right, one moment. I need to switch screens. So with the 7.4 update, Innovative made some major changes to the item record. This included merging the details and control tab. We have received a number of comments from staff who were surprised to see additional fields in the details tab. And one of the fields that was just added was the language field. This is in the call number section right here. Right now, it only includes 15 languages and other. The list is a bit odd and actually comes from the list that's used in patron registration. So right now I'm working on discussing this with Innovative to try to get the list updated so that it includes all of our top languages that we have in the catalog, and hopefully we can get that updated so it includes more than what's in the list. Bob is testing the database to see if he can do a bulk update of all of the item records using the 008 field of the bibliographic record. If libraries are concerned that bilingual material will be coded as English instead of the non-English language, we can work with you separately to assess the correct those item records. We also have the option to potentially just do this one library at a time, the way we did the call number splits. And I was wondering if we could get some feedback if you thought if you think we should do all libraries at one time, or if you would prefer to opt in to choose whether your library wants to use this field and updates it and with a bulk update, or if you think all libraries should do it at one time. One of the things about this is that this language field is not in the client. So it would be up to the library to choose to add this in LEAP when they're ready to start cataloging in LEAP. Does anyone have any thoughts on this? We do have some messages in the chat that you're interested in an opt-in situation, so each library gets to choose. John asks, will it ever be in the client? I don't think so. I think they're just going to start adding new fields to LEAP right now and are not going to be updating the client. Okay, it looks like we have enough people interested in just opting in that we will plan to do this like the call number split by opting in and doing one library at a time when you're ready to do it. I haven't looked at the Power Pack yet, but I think it would just be something that would be behind the scenes, like the statistical code, and would help us to make reports easier for item records. I think the filter in the Power Pack for language is still going to be based on the 008 and 041 fields. Does anyone have any other questions? Tammy, you're muted.
Rachel, would it complicate things if there's multiple catalogers at a library and some use Leap and some use Client?
It could. I would suggest to start using the field when everyone has switched to the client. I mean, not to the client, to Leap.
Okay, thank you.
John asks, are we leaving the client? We're not requiring any staff to switch to Leap yet, but it is advantageous to start thinking about switching to Leap, because you can start to see that they're making changes to Leap that they're not going to make in the client. But we don't have a specific timeline on when they're going to stop supporting the client yet.
Is there any other
So
questions?
well, I just thought of one other thing. That because we are dealing with Warren Newport's data right now, if you are interested in the bulk update of the Leap language field, we will not be doing that until after we've finished working with Warren Newport after their go live date to make sure everything runs smoothly. We have another question in chat. Should we be cataloging in Leap now? I would recommend reviewing the online courses and starting to feel comfortable with using Leap. I will be speaking about some activities we're going to be doing when I get to the staff reports section. But if you are ready to start using Leap, you are welcome to do that. But you're not required to use it yet. Kit said yet. Kit, I don't have a specific timeline on when Innovative will stop supporting the client. And so until we have that date, you're welcome to use the client if you want to continue to use the client. Libraries are not required to switch to Leap yet. Is there any other questions? Kit is in the chat is confirming the eventual requirement. At some point Innovative has said that they will stop supporting the client, and at that time, it would be better to switch to Leap. Kit, we will consider your comments, but we do encourage people to try to get to know Leap, because we do want your feedback on Leaps so that we can pass it on to Innovative, so Innovative can improve Leap so that it becomes better for everyone. And we'll be talking more about that in the next CAMM meeting. But for now, I think we should move on to the next item on the agenda.
Okay, the next item will be Anita Santora, who's going to review when to add set to the item records. Anna, are you here? Anita, rather, I'm sorry.
She's muted.
And I'm muted. So I have a presentation, but I'm not real comfortable. I don't often present. So I'm going to try and share a screen. Let me know if it works. And then we can go from there. So let's see. Can you see a PowerPoint presentation?
Yes.
Yes.
Oh, good. All right. So the day before the call for agenda items went out, somebody had actually asked me this question. When do we have to use set in item records? When should we and when should we not? So I thought, well, if one person's asking, it's probably time for a review. Maybe there are people who've never really gone over this before. So just 5-minute presentation about when and when not to use the set in item records. So I'm not going to do presentation mode. I'm just going to click here because it's just easier for me. I'm old. You got to just kind of bear with me. All right. So the first thing that we want to know is maybe why do we want to use set and call numbers? And the reason is because the volume field and item call numbers always affects the holds process. So in the multi-volume call number page in the cataloging wiki, it says this under the background section, that Polaris uses the volume field as a way to group items for patron holds. So we all have to use the volume field consistently so that the choices available to patrons show up consistently, and the way that the hold system picks for items and groups them as eligible operates consistently. So when should we use sets in the volume field of item records? When some copies of the record circulate as individual parts separately, and some copies on the same record circulate all parts together as a whole, we use set in the item call numbers of the volume field that are circulating as a whole. When you put something in a volume field in any item record, the item, there's a little icon that will appear in the pack next to every item attached to that record that will require it to be picked as a volume. So if we don't have set in the volume field, then it just appears as blank, and it's difficult to determine whether what you're actually choosing. So this is just a sample from the pack. I mean, from the client. This is a 3-movie set of The Godfather. And so you can see every library is doing things a little bit differently. Some libraries are doing set because they're circulating all 3 DVDs together. And one library is circulating each disc separately. So it's they've got them split out. And then there's one library that just has an on order record. And I think it's perfectly fine to leave this blank here because maybe they don't know what they're going to circulate their item as. Okay. If all existing copies are circulating as sets and your library wishes to circulate your item as in individual parts, you're going to add a set to the volume field for all the existing call numbers. So how do you tell whether all the items on a record are circulating as a set? If you look in the volume field and it's blank, then everything is circulating as a set. That's the easy way. So if I was going to add another item for Lake Villa, or if I wanted to split my item into 3 discs, I would have to put set in the volume field of all the other items that are attached to the record in order for holds to group correctly. Okay, when should we not use set in the volume field? When all the existing copies of a title record are circulating as a set. So if it's just unnecessary. If all the copies on the title record in the set have a volume field, please remove the volume set from all the library's call numbers. Because again, it'll put a little icon next to every item in the pack and require the patron to choose a volume in my opinion, not good customer service to require that if it's unnecessary. And then if one or more of the call numbers have set on a record and one or more have nothing in the volume record, please remove the volume set from all the library's call numbers so that it's consistent. So here we've got a series of DVDs, a 4-disc set from Monk season 3. And this is, we've got a few problems here. So some of the libraries, every library except a few have set. So what this means is everybody's circulating their item as a set. So ideally, what should happen is we should go in and remove set from all the call numbers so that we don't have to deal with, patrons don't have to deal with requesting this request for a specific volume. The reason this happens, I believe, is that sometimes items will circulate as a set, and then other items will, maybe the patron loses a copy, and so the library who owns that set determines we'll circulate our items individually, and then they add set to everybody else's call number, and it works just fine. But if those items get deleted, you don't necessarily know. And so that's why we end up with these items that have set unnecessarily in the call number. So if you see them, please clean them up. So is there anything else to know about volume field call numbers? Just a little reminder that we should not use the volume field for call numbers on single monograph records. If you want to include volume information as part of your call number, then just put it in a different field, put it in the suffix field. So this is an example where I messed up a record on purpose. This tells you everybody else is circulating theirs correctly. This record is just for the 2018 edition. And so this should not be here in the volume field. So one other thing to know, and probably everybody's aware of this, the CCS web report titled "Bibs with and without volumes attached" will help you identify items that might need correction. You just log in and you'll be able to view what is identified as a problem. So when in doubt, go to the wiki. All the information that I presented is in the multi-volume call numbers page of the cataloging manual, and then I'm just listing everything that I actually had just talked about in the presentation. So thank you very much for hearing me out and putting up with my well, old difficult ways of communicating here. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen, and if you have any questions, just let me know. Thanks.
Thank you, Anita. That was a good presentation. Next, we're back to Rachel. for the OCLC presentation. Or a
Tammy?
question. Yes?
There was something in the comments.
Oh, sorry.
That's fine. Do you want,
In the chat?
yeah. Karen asked Rachel, so when new libraries migrate, I'm guessing the volume field info is not checked against how other libraries do it? She also said, thanks, Anita. You're muted, Rachel.
Rachel, you're muted.
So when we bring in more Newport's records, they're going to be bringing in their call numbers in one field. And then we'll have to do the call number split process in bulk after they've gone through the process of reviewing the reports, as we've done with other libraries, and worked with Bob to do the call number split. After that, they'll be able to look at the same reports as everyone else has been doing to check that their volumes are in the correct field. But hopefully we'll be able to move them to the correct field in the bulk process of doing the call number split.
Is there any other questions on this topic? Okay, then we'll move on to Rachel for the WorldShare record manager.
I think Rich was next on the
Oh,
list for
sorry,
the call for
Richard.
participation.
Yep, sorry, Rich.
That's okay. I'm just going to be very brief. I have been for 6 years, for almost 6 years, a member of the PCC.
Rich, I'm sorry, can you talk a bit louder and get closer to your mic? We don't hear you
Can you
very
hear me
well.
better now?
Yes.
Okay, great. I'm nearing the end of my second and according to the bylaws, last term on the PCC, Program for Cooperative Cataloging, Standing Committee on Training. And I am the only non-academic library on that. If you had a chance, if you did happen to have a chance to review the PCC strategic directions document that that was linked in the CAMM packet, you might have noticed that PCC is actively trying to diversify its membership, specifically including getting more people to participate who do not come from the large academic libraries and research libraries that that traditionally populate PCC. So I am strongly encouraging anybody who might be interested to consider joining one of the PCC committees. I would push particularly hard for my own standing committee on training. First of all, because I am one of, I believe, 5 people on the committee whose term is ending at the end of September. And so there is room for, there's no reason that there should be only one public librarian on a PCC committee, right? It's a great opportunity, I think, to add your voice, your institution's voice, the voice of public libraries and non-academic libraries in general, to the shaping of PCC policy, at least in a small way. The Standing Committee on Training has done a lot of great work in putting training materials together and planning training programs for for transitioning first to the, what are they calling it now, the classic RDA, and now to official RDA. And I think it's important that the voices of those of us who are not in big institutions, maybe not in the wealthiest funded institutions, we need to have a place in that training and in that transition. We need to have a voice. And the PCC may look formidable from the outside, but I think they really are serious in reaching out to people from other library types. My experience with Standing Committee on Training has been really positive. I have found that people, the other members of the committee, really do listen to the concerns I bring from the public library world. And in fact, I've actually been asked to try to get people from my area and from other public libraries to participate. They would like to see more of us. I'll put in, well, obviously, I'll take questions, but a couple of points I was going to make. The workload is not that intense. I would be surprised if it averaged out to as much as a couple of hours a week. I mean, obviously, some weeks you're not doing anything committee related. Other weeks it gets a little more intense, but basically it's a very manageable workload. And you don't need to travel, because most of the committee's business, and I think this is true for PCC committees in general, is done via Zoom meetings and over email. My committee meets at ALA and Midwinter in person, but a lot of people can't make it, and that is understood. And the committee follows up with either a follow-up Zoom meeting or with an email discussion. So, if travel is an issue, as it certainly is for me, that does not inhibit your participation on these committees. So I will put some links in chat. Would that work, Rachel? To some of the information. I actually emailed the co-chairs of the SCT to see if they had any specific suggestions of how you might want to get involved. They haven't gotten back to me, but the web pages of the PCC actually include membership lists with email addresses of the chairs and co-chairs. So my suggestion for now, until I learn anything more, is if you see a committee you're interested in, especially if you see that members' terms are nearing expiration, just drop them an email, explain your interest, talk about how your experience might be relevant. I think you'll find them very open to your participation. So that's basically my pitch. I really encourage people. It's actually been fun. It's been rewarding. It's been a chance to make a little contribution, I think, to the direction of RDA and the PCC. Any questions? And of course, you can always email me later if you think of something. Oh, somebody asked how long is the term? On the SCT, you're appointed to a 3-year term, and that term can be repeated once. So like the president, you have a 2-term limit. I don't know if that's the same term for all the committees. And it does happen that occasionally that somebody has something unplanned come up, that they can't complete a term. The committees tend to be very understanding about that, but of course, they encourage us to enter the term with the expectation, at least, that we'll be able to do the whole 3 years.
There's no other questions then. Thank you, Rich. We
Okay,
appreciate
thank
it.
you. Thank you.
And now we will go on to Rachel with the World Share Record Manager.
Sure. I received a request to add this to the agenda. The person who sent it is wondering if any libraries have switched to using OCLC World Share Record Manager from Connection, and if you have, do you like it? Feel free to answer in the chat if you would like to answer, or you can unmute yourself. I haven't heard of any libraries that have switched yet. I did receive some communication about it from OCLC, in which they were trying to ask us to switch, but I did then ask for a demonstration. During the demonstration, I could see that there are ways to create macros that are different than Connection, and so they don't have an easy way to ingest our macro file in order to be able to set that up quickly in World Share Record Manager. So it seems like it would be something that would be more time consuming to switch to.
I think I had seen something on one of the lists that was saying that the browser is going away, or the browser, something's going away where updating holding records for periodicals won't be available through the browser. Somebody else probably knows more about it. But so I registered for the World Share Record Manager, but I haven't used it yet. But that would be the reason why. I don't remember, there's some sort of a deadline. Somebody in the chat saying sometime in 2024, Connection browser is going to be discontinued. So I think that's why we would all maybe use it. But like I said, I just haven't had a chance to look at it yet, but it was easy to go on and register and get I don't remember if it was an account number or a password, but it was, you just go to the OCLC page and send your information in. It takes no time to get registered.
By browser, does that also include the desktop client version of Connection, or is that just the online version?
I think it's just the browser. Yeah, definitely the client is staying. I think there'd be a riot if they got rid of the client.
Kit posted a statement from OCLC in the chat. Are there any other questions about this topic? Okay, we can move on to the next item. I did receive a comment at the scrap meeting that there are many young adult fiction records that don't have our local subject heading in them. So I did just want to remind everyone of the Catalogers Wiki page, where you can find the local subject headings. This is the genre form headings page. and it has a list of the local subject headings in them. Please do add them to records, including the young adult fiction when the audience code says it's for teens. There's also young adult poetry and plenty of other local headings that you could consider adding to the records. Are there any questions about the local genre headings?
Rachel, I will say one thing that I have noticed lately, that there have been some of
Brad, can you speak louder? We can't hear you.
sorry. I have noticed lately that some of the records have instead of local, they have LCGFT in them. And then I've also noticed that some have a 655-4 as well. So I've been noticing that coming in a couple times lately.
Yeah, thank you for the comment. Is please do make sure that you add the second indicator of 7 subfield 2 local for all of these local genre headings. That was a recent change that we made at a previous meeting, but we do want to make sure that they are consistent.
Rachel in the chat, Shirley asked if we could talk a little bit about the OCLC visibility subscription.
I'm not sure what that is. I haven't heard of it.
Okay. Shirley, did you want to elaborate?
Shirley, if you're unable to get yourself online to answer that, if you don't mind, I can step in a little. We attended a webinar yesterday from OCLC about their visibility subscription, which puts basically our catalog holdings and our metadata out in Google search, out available through things I'm sorry, I'm drawing a blank on the reading, Goodreads, there we go, things like Goodreads, so that they're able to, our users are able to find our data from where they're starting their search, because not everyone's going to start looking at the library catalog when they're thinking, oh, I'd like to see, or I'd like to get. So if they're starting in Google, I mean, that's the point of it, is to make our information available out there. So one of the things that I would like to know, and I've asked Shirley to kind of ask about this because my laptop, I'm at home, has told me it's going to have a mandatory reboot in under 45 minutes now, and I didn't want to miss the opportunity to at least learn from everyone's expertise. So first off, how many of us are involved in that, are taking advantage of that program? And if you are, you know, can we contact you offline regarding some of the things regarding your setup or maybe cost? Because this wasn't something I had budgeted for this fiscal year, so I don't know if it's going to be affordable for us. And that was one of the things that they really didn't want to touch on in the webinar itself. It was more geared towards, and this is what it does. And if you want more information, fill out this form and we'll get back to you. So is anyone participating in the program?
Kathy, it
There's some
appears you're
comments.
cutting edge.
There's
I'm
some
sorry?
comments in the chat. Most people are not aware of it.
Okay, very curious about that. This kind of came about, Shirley and I at ALA. We both talked with different vendors and came up with some of the same kind of information about getting our information out on the web via Google. At the Claravite booth, they were talking about the Google ad grant for non-for-profit organizations. And then Shirley came back with, oh, OCLC's got something like this already in place. So, okay then, thank you so much for your information.
Okay, thank you, Kathy. We can move on to CCS staff reports now. Rachel,
Okay.
if you'd like to go ahead.
Sure. So my full staff report is in the packet. However, I'll just briefly summarize it and take any questions that you have. Polaris has been upgraded to 7.4, as you've probably already heard. I've updated all of the technical services courses for the 7.4 upgrade. At this time, it appears that the 7.5 upgrade will not have any important technical services features. Additional technical services features will probably be added with the 7.6 upgrade. The release date has not been announced yet for these upgrades. We will plan to discuss your experiences with LEAP at the November meeting. I will be sending out a list of activities for you to do in order to become more familiar with LEAP and to prepare your comments for the meeting. Please familiarize yourself with the go live plans for Warren Newport and the schedule for being offline. You can find them on the CCS website. There is a link in the previous newsletter. If you have scheduled Simply reports that typically run on the first of the month, you can modify the report schedule to compile before 9:30 p.m. on Thursday, August 31st. You can retrieve the report once libraries are back online on Tuesday, September 5th. All saved reports can be run manually once CCS libraries are online on Tuesday, September 5th. Virginia?
Okay, I gave you most of my same report, like in the packet, just like Rachel did, but I can give you some of the, pardon me, I can give you some of the highlights. Lots of subject heading changes. Slaves is no longer, it's all enslaved persons or enslaved women, children, older people, and even Indians. All those headings been changed to the database. I know because there was a lot to do. I remember. Let's see. There's also a change of giants, went to giants folklore, and albinos. And albinoism, I think, just went to plain albinos. Maybe it went to albinoism. Well, whatever. It's in the notes. It's in the packet exactly. LC is also busily changing fictitious characters from the subject being a subject to a name, title, authority record. So I've been busily reviewing lots and lots of reports about them and changing ones that need to be changed. Let's see. There's also I also mentioned, to remember, we were already talking about young adult fiction. Make sure those kind of headings use a second ending or 7. I've been changing a lot. I changed a lot of those type of things already, and I sometimes periodically do change more. And last thing is, but not the least, is I will be sending records to Archive tomorrow. There's almost 13,000 of them to go in. We're doing it. I wanted to do it before we had more. We have to worry about bringing in more Newport records. We will do Archive again after more Newport and settle down, and a lot of the deduping has been done. That's it. Any questions?
We can take any questions now for the staff reports. There is one question already in the chat. As long as we're discussing authority heading changes, do you have any more information on when computer games will become video games? And is that a subdivision we will need to start using soon?
No, I thought it's already changed. Computer games, some of the computer games has already been done. It's not, it's all video games. Every lot of like is already done. I'm not sure about the subdivision. I think so.
Is there any other questions for the staff reports?
Kathy, what's your question?
My director had come back from a meeting and had said that CCS is looking at moving away from OCLC for interlibrary loan and cataloging. And I was wondering if there was anything in terms of timeline, in terms of investigation, in terms of things that we should be looking at proactively rather than waiting until a decision is made and here's your choices A, B, or C.
This is not something that's happening immediately. I've done a preliminary report on the alternatives to OCLC. During the current fiscal year, I'll be working with Deborah to look into the possibility of joining Find More Illinois. It's not a replacement yet for OCLC World Share because there's a very small amount of libraries in Illinois that are using it, but CCS libraries are so large that it would be really enticing for other libraries to join. And hopefully at some point, about half of Illinois would potentially join if the larger libraries start joining. So that would be a first step to look into alternatives to WorldShare. In the fiscal year 24-25, we do plan to do more research into BT-CAT. Right now, BT-CAT isn't the best alternative to OCLC, but they do have plans to improve it in the future, such as making it or adding the NACO features to BT-CAT, but we don't know when that will be. So we're not going to be looking into it now. So we don't have a specific date for a goal of when we would want to potentially leave OCLC, but Rebecca's main concern is the increasing price of it and the transparency issues of how they do pricing. So the alternatives to OCLC would save libraries a lot of money if we can switch to a competitor in the future.
Thank you, Rachel.
I did just briefly look at id.loc.gov, and computer games is still listed as a topical subdivision under subjects for works about computer games. Rich asks, is Sky River still a potential option? Several libraries switched to them some years ago, but I haven't heard much recently. I have looked into that. And it's something we can discuss in the future. We're not doing any more research into alternatives in the current fiscal year. That would potentially be something we could talk about in fiscal year 24, 25, or after that. But one thing that did impress me about BT Cat is that they actually have a cataloger on staff. And so for those libraries that have potentially a large backlog and need some assistance with cataloging, may find that the efficiency of BT Cat could be useful, because that cataloger is cataloging records that would be available in BT Cat. It's also well integrated into Baker and Taylor's Title Source 360. They'd efficiently be able to create files of records of the titles that were purchased through Title Source 360 that would meet your specifications. So there's certain efficiencies that are beneficial through that. But it is vendor neutral, so you can buy titles from any vendor and still use BT Cat. They'd also be able to just easily transfer our macros from OCLC Connection and would create macros for us. Heather commented on BT Cat in the chat that she has worked with it at Follett and enjoys using the tool. Are there any other questions? Okay. Next thing on the agenda is the scrap report. The scrap advisory group meeting was held on August 8th. A link to the minutes and recording are in the packet. I'll just summarize it in case you have any questions. We discussed the RDA timeline. The PCC Policy Committee has decided that they will have a rolling implementation from May 1st, 2024 until April 30th, 2027. This is a 3-year rolling implementation that will allow institutions to transition to the official RDA toolkit when they're ready, before removing the original RDA toolkit in 2027. Scrap members agreed that it will be best to wait until 2027 to adopt the official RDA toolkit. CCS would continue to use the original RDA toolkit until then. They did not vote on a motion because this timeline may change. It's been constantly changing every year. The video for our meeting also includes a presentation that I did that was basically a summary of a presentation on cataloging series and periodicals from ALA Annual. It's a very confusing topic because of the changes that the RDA toolkit made and that PCC will be adopting. So if anyone does have any questions after reviewing it or any comments, they can send it to me and I can send those questions and comments to the correct channels. It's difficult to answer those questions myself because of how confusing that topic was. Scrap members also discussed the usage of local headings for diversity, since Palatine needs to use these headings for their methodology that they're using for their diversity audit. Scrap members agreed that they should continue to use the 691 field as they have been using for local headings, and that they did not vote on the motion since no change will be recommended. Are there any questions about the scrap report? All right, Tammy?
So next we have announcements. Does anybody have any news from their libraries that they'd like to share? Doesn't seem like anyone does. So I'd like to remind everybody that the next meeting will be November 15th, and it'll be in person at the CCS in Lincolnshire in the Fishbowl. So we'll all get to check that out.
Yeah, the address for the entrance will be the 200 Tri-State International Drive building. It's right by the Half Day Road exit for I-94.
That sounds good. And then you saw my note about the scan station, right?
So I think that's everything. So I'll ask for a motion to adjourn the meeting.
Motion to adjourn.
That's fine.
And Kathy, second.
Thank you. Okay, have a great rest of your summer.
Okay. That sounds
See you
good.
in the fall.
All right. No, that should be it. All right. All right. Sounds good. Thank you.